Hello YouTube, Robert Alvarez, the Psychic Witch, also known as Mr. Lighting and a Fan. And yes, I have my lighting, I have my fan. And how you doing in YouTube land? I never get tired of that. So I am happily wearing this t-shirt that I happily purchased at one of the FlameCon events. FlameCon is the premier LGBTQ plus Comic-Con, and it is the world's largest event of its kind as well. They celebrated their 10th anniversary last year. The 11th FlameCon this past August was wonderful, and I'm happily wearing this t-shirt which I purchased last year. But anyway, so it is my pleasure to present to you another BookTube video from yours truly, Robert Alvarez, the Psychic Witch. And I'm going to have Drake do a close-up of the cover. Drake is more commonly known as my awesome audio-visual person for my YouTube video. It's called Chulito by Charles Rice-González. So let me tell you a little bit about Charles Rice-González. So Mr. Rice-González, excuse me, is somebody that I met several years ago. In fact, I think I met him more than a decade ago. He is a professional writer. He is also involved with BAAD, B-A-A-D, which is the Bronx Academy and something of dance in the Bronx, one of the 5 boroughs of New York City. And I have had the honor and pleasure of seeing him again this past April at the Rainbow Book Fair, which resumed 3 years ago, excuse me. So this is his book, which was published in 2011, but I did not purchase a copy until 2017, and I purchased it in July of 2015, to be precise, at the Bureau of General Services Queer Division, or the Bureau for short, which is housed inside the LGBTQ Center in Manhattan, or their local gay community center. Growing up, we called it the Gay Center. So even though I live in New Jersey, I would spend time at the LGBT Community Center in Manhattan. So anyway, Chulito is about a young man named Chulito, that is his name, who begins to find himself having feelings towards his childhood best friend, Carlos. Carlos is somebody that he grew up with in the Hunts Point section of the Bronx, lived in the same building, and it just so happens that Carlos is a little bit older than Chulito because Carlos is beginning his first year of college, whereas Chulito is going into his junior year of high school, if I'm remembering the timelines correctly. And what I love about the book, first of all, I love the fact that virtually every character is Hispanic, is a Latine character, number one. And number two, I love the fact that it is showing me a world that is mostly unfamiliar to me, because, you know, I'm somebody that didn't begin listening to rap music until just before the publication of this book. So some of the artists now that were mentioned in passing are familiar to me because I've listened to their music, I've watched documentaries about them, I've read articles about them, what have you. But what I love is how Chulito also begins to realize that if he cannot accept Carlos being openly gay, not just gay, but openly gay, that he could risk not only losing his friendship, you know, his childhood best friend, but he could be risking losing probably one of the greatest love relationships Chulito could ever have in his lifetime. And it is interesting to me how layered the book is. Every character, even the quote-unquote minor characters, have their substance, have their oomph, if you will. Reading this book was something that I happily did in honor of National Hispanic Heritage Month, and it's one of 3 books that I began reading on September 15th this year. But this was the last one, and I acknowledge that there were some other books that were pretty much demanding my attention. Some of them were fiction, some of them were non-fiction, metaphysical, but it was absolutely wonderful to read this book. And I also loved the fact that a portion of Carlos's life is conveyed in this book. So I'm currently 55 years of age, and when I came out of the closet, I was 18. And from 18 to about 22, 23 years of age, I would occasionally hang out at the Christopher Street Piers. And what was interesting to me was reading about the different characters, the different types of people who would go hang out at the Christopher Street Piers in Greenwich Village at this time. So there was a part of me that felt nostalgia for a world that I had not fully immersed myself in. I still think back reluctantly from time to time about my younger years, my adolescence, my young adulthood, and the badass bitch that I believe myself to be, the one who is more confident and more secure in my skin, at least 75% of the time, if I'm going to be completely honest about that and authentic about that, would have just taken teenage me and young adult me and say, you know what, bitch, you need to get over your shit. People are either going to like you or they're not. They're going to love you or they're not. They're going to find you attractive or they're not. You just got to be you all the motherfucking time. That way, if they don't like you, it does not matter to you. And I wish 55-year-old me had found teenage and young adult me and said that, because I needed that big time. I needed those words of encouragement and worthiness and advice and wisdom and comfort and care at that time in my life. And I will tell you, reading this book was such an enjoyable experience for me. It's a little more than 300 pages. It's been a while since I've read a book that is, let's say, past too much past the 300-page mark. I'm actually waiting for the Sara El Arithi's books to be published. Well, two of them. So I'm holding off. But there are some other books that are more than 300 pages that I could spend time with, but I haven't been doing that yet because, again, other books have been dominating my time. I love this book. I actually do not love the fact that there was somebody who wrote an incredibly disgusting. I found this person's review of this book disgusting. And I can understand, I know all too well that not every book resonates with everybody. I know this. But I will say that I have found more beautiful and positive reviews for this book. Personally, I think this book would appeal to non-Latin people as well. If you are somebody who felt like a certain romantic relationship or a potential romantic relationship or a friendship passed you by, or if somebody else's lack of courage or your own prevented you from having something really amazing in your life, and if you happen to be somebody who was born and raised in the Bronx. So there are so many people who can relate to this story. And for the record, to my knowledge, Mr. Rice-González has not yet written another novel. And I've only seen him a handful of times over the last decade. More than a decade ago, I would see him on a more regular basis, based on some of our shared activities at the LGBT Community Center. I always want to say LGBTQ+, but it's the LGBT Community Center in Manhattan. But I will say that if I do spend more time with him, or if I feel more comfortable with him, I can say, you know, just out of curiosity, when are you writing your next novel? Because, you know, I mean, I'm sure that there are authors that get asked that a lot, and I'm sure that there are a lot of authors that are like, can you please stop asking me that, but they're too polite to say that, or they want to maintain a certain image or whatnot. But I will tell you, I loved this book very much, and I think one of the reasons why, of the 3 books that I began reading in honor of National Hispanic Heritage Month, this is the last of the 3 that I finished reading. It's probably because I really, really, really was enjoying it so much. Not to imply that I was not enjoying the other 2, but because several of the characters in this book are gay men of Hispanic origin, like yours truly, I really wanted to spend more time savoring every crumb of this dish, every course of every dish, every crumb of every dish, of every course. I loved reading this very much. And because it is not just my own copy, it was autographed by the author himself, I'm keeping it for a while. I would love to have a tomb. I might just have myself cremated, or I might just have myself placed on a funerary barge and lit on fire. I don't know. But, because I really don't think about my death. But I like the idea of a tomb. I really would prefer to be mummified and put in a tomb. And I would love to have the books that I want to accompany me in the afterlife with me. And this is definitely one of them. So if I had, you know, I might actually need to make a list of the books that I want to accompany me in the afterlife. It would be roughly, at this point, 30% of the books that I currently own and love and adore. And I'm not being entirely honest. It'll probably be more than 50%, if I'm really going to be honest. I wonder if Drake wants to chime in on that. He's saying nothing. I'm not going to throw something at you, I promise. I really do mean it. I'm not going to throw anything at him. But maybe it's more than 50%. I don't know. In any event, I will include a link to the book. I need to find out if the publisher, Magnus Books, is still around. If they are, and they're selling books directly from their website, I will include that link. And if not, I'll find some articles about this book and make sure that it is included in the description box. And if you have read this book, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what you think about it. I am still open to hearing whatever your review is. Beautiful, ugly, whatever. I don't think that your negative review could be uglier than this one I read on Goodreads, which is another reason to spend less time on Goodreads, but that's just me. But anyway, let me know. And for now, thank you to Mr. Rice-González for writing this book. This novel was so enjoyable. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to Magnus Books, whether or not they're still in business, for publishing this book. Thank you for everybody who contributed to the creation of this book. And thank you, of course, to all of you in YouTube land for all the likes, all the comments, all the shares, and all the subscriptions to my YouTube channel. And an extra big and beautiful thank you to those of you who have already scheduled your sessions. As always, stay in tune with your intuition. Stay safe, stay well, stay hydrated, and stay tuned for the next video. And now I'm going to get into Wonder Woman's invisible jet and fly away.